Hello my Beatles friends, welcome back to another video. As promised in my post on my channel, I'm going to talk about John Lennon's album, which is called Live Peace in Toronto 1969. I didn't want to make a proper review of that because there are some other things that I want to show about this album. I want to tell you a story about it, but I'm going to briefly talk about the story of this album, how it was made, what's the story behind it, and what this album brought and to what it led. The reason I want to talk about this album is because I've known this album for quite some time, and it's a very milestone album in the catalog of all four Beatles and in the Beatles history, and it's somehow is overlooked in the history, and somehow, not very often people talk about this album. So first of all, I would like to show you the 4 copies that I have. Sleeve and the artwork of this album is rather minimalistic, how you call it. That's the cover with only one cloud here, and the back doesn't have much more. It's plastic on a band, Live Peace in Toronto 1969, and the song listing and the band. That's it. It only has here a quote by Derek Taylor, which says, "Being born in Scotland carries with it certain responsibilities." Now, this is a German press, and all of them look pretty much the same. This is the Apple. This is UK. Looks the same. I have another UK issue, but no different from the other. And what's interesting, the American version has this hype sticker that says, including John and Yoko 1970 calendar. And what's also interesting about this one is that it says recorded in England, but that's a huge mistake, and I'm going to talk about it later. The original album, the first pressing of it, included this very interesting and rare calendar, and I'm going to show you all the pages of it. So, this album was recorded in Toronto on 13th of September and released on 12th of December 1969. Initially, Capitol were reluctant to release the album due to Yoko Ono's performances and because of the failure of 3 experimental albums that were released prior to that. But despite that, the album peaked number 10 in the US, although it failed to chart in UK. John Lennon received a phone call from promoters of the festival, Rock and Roll Revival Festival. It took place on the Varsity Stadium, University of Toronto. And they asked him to be a host, so-called Master of Ceremonies, but Lennon offered to perform on this concert, but he didn't require any payment or money, but he demanded the rights for this recording to release an album. And John said that he already had a band, which is called Plastic Ono Band, but in reality, he didn't have a band yet. So only when he promised the promoters that he will perform, the next day actually, he started to call all the guys, everybody who was available. First of all, he asked George if he wanted to join, but George simply declined. And then he called Eric, and Eric Clapton agreed. And then he called Klaus Voormann being his longtime friend. He said, Eric already agreed, you want to join? And Klaus said yes, and who's the drummer? So they called Alan White, which was a session drummer at the time, very respected. And Alan White first didn't believe that he was invited to join John Lennon's band, but when John called him for the second time, then he realized that it's for real, that it's not a prank. And they had only like 24 hours to get to the festival, and the funny thing is that they never performed together. They never performed on one stage as a band. They had only like 8 hours to rehearse, and Klaus asked John, and we don't have a time. And John said we only have 8 hours to perform, but Klaus said, hey, from London to Toronto it takes 8 hours to fly. And John said, that's the point, you know, that was kind of thing. There are a lot of pictures, flight rehearsal that was unplugged, of course. I didn't hear any songs. It is well documented by Klaus himself. He made a drawing of that event, and the lithograph, which is signed, of course, you can buy from his website. And it's a very interesting drawing, by the way. They decided to perform well-known rock and roll songs that everybody knew because, like I said, they never performed together, so that's why they ended up performing those songs. And they had a brief rehearsal before the show. And according to Klaus and according to Eric, preparations and arrival to the venue was a mess. And also on, as you can see on the picture, Klaus Voormann's drawing has a topic, says very chaotic rehearsal. I mean, that was the most, I think it was the most bizarre preparation for the show. Songs that they performed that night were Blue Suede Shoes. I mean, it's a very known Carl Perkins number that everybody knows. Then there was Money and Dizzy Me Sleazy, those two numbers that Beatles covered during the Beatles years, the early years, and John's sung songs. Yeah, Blues was chosen because John and Eric Clapton performed that song in late 1968 on the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus. That's why it was chosen. Then the most recent John Lennon single called Turkey, backed with Don't Worry Kyoko, was performed for the first time ever. That was a debut, and according to John, they loved it. Everybody loved it. They performed this concert in front of 25,000 people. People liked that song. And of course, then came the anthem, and then John says, that's what we're here for, which is Give Peace a Chance, and they sang along. Now, what I like about this album is that Give Peace a Chance is mostly acoustic song, which was recorded in a hotel room. Here, it's an electrical guitar-based song, which is very nice, which is very interesting rendition of that song. Money and Dizzy Me Sleazy are a bit heavier, which is also interesting. And the side 2 is dedicated completely to Yoko Ono songs, which are Don't Worry Kyoko, like I said, it's a B-side to the Cold Turkey. And John John, this is the electrical rendition of one of the tracks from the Wedding album, which is also like a acoustic version of the Wedding album, but here it is John John, Let's Hope for Peace, electrical version. Now, those two songs, as you may have already guessed, don't sit really well with the audience. And this album was mostly popular for the side 1. And somebody said that when you buy this album used condition, side 1 is completely worn out and the side B is never played. But I have to admit that Yoko Ono's performance on those two songs is very, very interesting. And during the side 1 songs, she was howling to the microphone, and the musicians on the stage thought that they have feedback or something like. But then Klaus said, no, she's howling. Yeah, she's giving a backing vocals. But I have to admit that Don't Worry Kyoko is a nice rendition. It's very interesting, and the musicianship here is nice. The guitar feedbacks and the riffs and how Eric Clapton evolved in the process is very interesting. It's worth checking out. But the most disappointing part for me here is the second song performed by Yoko, which is John John. The ending of it, she's screaming, and it's a bit annoying. And I have to admit that if that song, which is approximately 12 minutes long, if that song would be a bit shorter, like 7 or 8 minutes, it would work better. That is my opinion. But overall, I have to say that the side 1 is worth checking out. Not only John and Plastic Ono Band performed in that concert, because that concert involved also Bo Diddley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and some other musicians like Doors and other bands, Alice Cooper as well. And Carl Perkins was also there, and when Carl Perkins heard his song Blue Suede Shoes, he was pleased. This concert, like I said, the rights were obtained by John. That was the part of the deal. So in addition to the album, to this album, which was released in December, in late 80s, there was a movie released which was called Sweet Toronto. Now, this DVD was released, I think, in 2001, and it contains performances by Bo Diddley, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and then the entire concert by Plastic Ono Band. Nice DVD, nice footage, also worth checking out. The consequences of this album are very interesting. This album is the first album ever, live album released by any of the Beatles as a band or individuals. And that was a very, like I said, that was a milestone album in the career. And by releasing this album and performing that show alone, still while being a member of the Beatles, and that gave him a confidence as a solo artist. And on his way back, he announced to Eric Clapton first and then to Alan Klein that he was about to leave the band. Though preparations for the show were rushed and chaotic, Lennon later said that he gained the confidence to leave the Beatles during those few days. Lennon mentioned this to Clapton at the time, and upon returning to London, he privately told Beatles manager Alan Klein. So this album gave John Lennon a courage that he can be a successful solo artist, which he was never before. And a couple of days later, he said that he was already leaving the band. Today, it's a very rare thing to find, and I'm going to show you page by page. This is the introduction. The idea starts from the page 1. It says here, paste your own cover. Here, paste your own cover. So you can actually do something, do what you like. I always thought to go visit Klaus Voormann and ask him to sign this one. Actually, when I met Klaus Voormann in 2019, for my second time out of 5 that we met, I was thinking which album to make him sign. I wanted to, I was hesitating between Imagine and Plastic Ono Band, and maybe this one, but eventually, you know, Imagine is the obvious choice. Everybody has it. Also Revolver. I mean, he signed Revolver that day, but I also wanted something solo. So we ended up signing the Plastic Ono Band CD cover and making a picture. Yeah, that's one. Then I thought to myself, oh, it would be nice to sign him on this calendar as well. But who knows, maybe I'm going to do that in the future. So, page 1 is them young pictures. And then we have January. And here, every page has quotes by John and by Yoko, taken from the books In His Own Right, Spaniel in the Work, and Grapefruit. The 2 first were written by John, and the last one is written, of course, by Yoko. So this is page 2, February. This is page 3, page 4. And also, every picture here has also a quote, and it says who is the photographer of this picture. In this case, we have here Keith Macmillan. We have this one, and each page has a calendar and quotes. Next one. Another one. Now we are on July 70. September. Actually, we have here 13 months. We have also the 13 month, and it also says here that you can make your own month, just like the cover. I like the idea of giving the fans a freedom of what to do. And here we have the last page. Here it says the star 1. All the texts are marked with 1 star, 2 stars, or 2 crosses. The star 1 quote is taken from John Lennon in His Own Right. The 2 stars is from Spaniel in the Works, like I said before. 1 cross is taken from I Am the Walrus, Across the Universe in My Life, Held, A Day in the Life, Good Morning. by John and Paul McCartney. I mean, for the quotes from the songs. And the 2 stars is taken from Grapefruit Works by Yoko Ono, first edition. That's interesting. So, in addition to the quotes from the books, there are also quotes from the Beatles songs. Lennon started to mix the album on 25th of September after returning from the concert, but eventually left it untouched, and on 20th of October he finished the album by removing some vocals of Yoko and backing vocals of Clapton from the song Don't Worry Kyoko. On the remastered version of this album, however, Yoko Ono also made some changes. She added her vocals to Dizzy Miss Lizzy performance, but reduced some vocals from the Money performance. And this was released as a CD, remastered CD, also worth checking out. What's interesting about this CD release, that the booklet itself is also a replica of the calendar. And this CD is also very sought after. 3 variations released: the CD, the DVD, and the album. And all 3 have differences. Definitely worth checking out. 3 days later, after this album was released, John and Yoko made this photo on 15th of December. And this is a campaign called War is Over. Now, I've known this photo for a long time. And while I was making a research about this song and wanted to visit Klaus in 2019, here comes an interesting story. In 2019, I opened this website. There is a website called warisover.com. What's interesting on that website, that this poster that they're holding, you can download in different sizes for reprinting, reproduction, on every possible language. Now, and here comes the very interesting thing, that I speak 5 languages: Georgian, Russian, Hebrew, English, and German. And I also learn Ukrainian because my wife is from Ukraine. And I wanted to download all possibilities, all the languages that I speak. So I have the original, of course, and the German and Hebrew, which is very interesting, and Ukrainian and Russian. And all of them follow the message, war is over if you want it. But when I opened the Georgian one, my mother language, I was very, surprised, because there is a mistake. It's written, grammatically it's correct, but it's not the right tense and not the right message translated to Georgian. And I was very surprised to see that. And also there is a Georgian language written with English letters. What's written in English letters and what's written in Georgian are completely 2 different phrases, completely 2 different meanings. And whoever did one poster has nothing to do with the other poster. So it's completely a mess. And I was really surprised to see that. I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to help. I wanted to correct. So I wrote the message, email, and I said, look, I am Georgian national and I can see that there is a mistake with Georgian language and I can help you out. And I think, and to my surprise, I got the answer. And I think it was Simon who answered me. I'm not sure. I can't state that for sure, but I think it was Simon who answered me. And first of all, he tried to explain me the meaning, and I said I do understand the meaning in English, and I do understand the meaning in Georgian. And when I see the meaning in Georgian, it's completely different tense. And what's written in Georgian with English letters, with Latin letters, it's completely different. So it's like total mess. And like I said, I tried to explain to him that grammatically is correct, but it's not what it means. The meaning of the poster is wrong. And I have to admit that I don't think he understood what I'm trying to say. Knowing the language as well as I do, I think it was too much for him. And after a second message, he already stopped answering me. So my attempt to help and my attempt to improve that mistake was ignored. But still, I got the answer. I had a communication, but it didn't change. And later, I took my original postcard. I did have the original postcard of this picture, and I wrote a letter, and I did send it to Yoko and to Sean in to New York, and I asked them to sign it and send it back to me because I wanted to have Yoko Ono's autograph. I also sent the envelope and the return post stamp, everything. I did everything correct, but this time it was completely ignored and I never got the answer. But at least I tried. Okay, so that was the story behind this picture, and for me, and the languages. This is the album, worth checking out. Very nice renditions of great songs, and definitely worth buying the DVD because not so many live performances by John, and each and every one of them is very, very important. I would like to know your ideas, your thoughts. Was this album the last drop in Lennon's decision to leave the band? What are your thoughts about this album? And who of you, my fellow collectors, has this calendar? And also, please tell me in the comment section below, shall I ask Klaus Voormann to sign here to make my own cover? What do you say? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.